Hey, Leah.
Hey Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
I, I was just figuring out all this live stuff, so I think I've got it.
I know the technology piece behind it is not our specialty.
No, but welcome and
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining me in my group today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat and yeah, have this conversation with you about food sensitivities and all of that. So thanks for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to learn more about this. It's really interesting all the stuff that I've learned from you. So, um,
Yeah, good.
yeah, it's a good
Well,
topic.
ditto. Yeah.
Um, I think I'll just introduce you a little bit and then you
Okay.
can maybe tell us a little bit more about, what you want people to know.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds
and then
good.
I'll just ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Perfect.
you are a holistic health coach and you specialize in helping women find relief from food sensitivities, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So many of the women that I speak with and work with are really kind of on that vicious cycle of struggling with digestive symptoms or digestive related symptoms, which we'll talk about. We can talk about that a little bit, what that looks like, because it's pretty broad. And, they've maybe been for extensive testing, they've seen multiple practitioners, they've tried all these different things and they just can't get out of that loop. And so I really specialize in helping them get to the root cause, those underlying causes of what is triggering their symptoms, what is really kind of wreaking havoc in their body. And when we get to the root cause, they find so much relief. So it's really fun to go through that process with people and to see that transformation happen because it's so possible to find relief. And it's just, I think in the medical world, a lot of times where that people aren't finding answers, they're not finding solutions with conventional medicine. So when we look at it more holistically, the results are just incredible. People find so much relief and can really get back to enjoying their life, which is my mission for them. I think as health coaches, that's what we do is we try to help people get through these barriers and get back to enjoying the things that they want to put their attention on versus these things that are demanding our attention.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's what we all want is it's just so great to see when we can get to the root of our clients' issues and then see how much better they get and how much happier they are and how, it's like they get their life back because,
Yeah.
you know, they feel so much better. And it's just so like rewarding, I think, to see that, when
Yeah,
you help
definitely. I
people.
mean, it's amazing. And yeah, I think when there's something going on with our health that's really showing up in your life consistently or every day, or for some people all day, every day, it really takes over your life and you start not being able to show up fully for your family, or you're in so much pain or your brain's cloudy, you can't really perform the way you want to at work. Everything takes more effort and it really just takes over your life. So it's so important to get to the root cause and figure out how to stop that loop and stop that cycle. And yeah, like I said, it's totally possible. I know for you with the people you work with too, it's like if we can break up that cycle and just really support their bodies holistically, people get into such a they really can get out of it and into such a better place where they don't have to let their whole life be consumed by what's going on with their health.
Yeah, I don't
Awesome.
think people realize how good they can feel until they've gone through, the health coaching and gotten to the issues and everything. And then they realize, I didn't even realize how good I could feel. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that was possible. So it's just, yeah, it's really, um, rewarding to see. And
Yeah, it really is.
I love working with people in that way. So
Yeah, and I think, like as we're talking about this, I think it's so important for people to hear, that there is hope, because I think that's the biggest thing. Like you're saying, people don't know that they can feel as good as they end up feeling. And I think one of the things that is the picture that's painted sometimes when you just go and you see a doctor and you don't receive that diagnosis, or maybe you get a diagnosis like with food sensitivities, a lot of times it's IBS, which is a catch-all sort of diagnosis. It's like there's inflammation in your colon, in your bowels, in your gut, but we don't really know what's causing it. We don't know what you can do about it. And so I think it's so important for people to have hope and to realize that like there are things that we can do. The picture isn't this grim picture that's been painted for so many of us, that like here's this catch-all diagnosis. We don't really have answers for you. And so you're just going to need to live with this. Like that is so rarely the case with someone who's kind of struggling with these chronic health challenges that are just showing up day after day in their life. Like so often there's something that we can do to feel better. And usually there's a lot of things that we can do to feel better and to really take those steps. So I hope people hear that, and I hope people understand that that there really are things you can do to get out of this loop, despite the fact that maybe you've been told that there aren't really solutions and your blood work looks fine. And when we go more alternatively and really support our bodies at these foundational levels, there is so much hope. And I've experienced that, and I know you've experienced that, and we see it with our clients all the time. So I just want to bring that little bit of hope to people that it is super possible and achievable. It's doable. It's achievable to get out of that. So
yeah, and Leah, you brought up IBS, and I don't even know if I've talked about this with you, but I experienced that like in my early
okay.
20s,
Yeah.
when I started college, and I went to the doctor, and all they wanted to do was give me a pill. I went to like three different doctors
Mhm.
trying to figure out, well, what is going on? Like, why am I getting these symptoms? And I was having, all the IBS symptoms like bloating and gas and diarrhea, and they
Yeah.
just wanted to give me a pill. And so I had to figure that out on my own, what was causing this. And, you know, um, I had to get to the root issue and learn about what is IBS, because I kept being diagnosed with it, but
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it was. So yeah, but
Yeah.
it's
It's
always
fascinating.
possible.
For those who don't know, it's irritable bowel syndrome, and you can have it where maybe you tend more toward constipation, maybe you tend more towards diarrhea, or maybe you go back and forth between the two, but one way or another that the bowel is in some way irritated. But it's a very non-specific diagnosis, because it's not getting to it's not really telling us. It's telling us that these symptoms are there, that there's inflammation, but not what's causing it. And so when we're looking into the underlying causes, it's about what is causing that for you. And
Mhm.
there are so many things that can cause that. And so really focusing on those things that's going to be the most efficient way to get out of that loop and out of that cycle, is to get to that underlying cause. Otherwise, what can happen, like you're saying, they tried to give you a pill, and we can just be, and not that there's never a place for that, there certainly can be, but you know, without, it can just kind of mask the symptoms or treat a specific symptom. And if we're not getting to the underlying cause, something's going to pop back up. Like there's no way that our bodies, just by covering up a symptom and leaving that underlying cause, like we're not really out of the weeds when we treat it that way. And so that was my experience. I kept finding this one thing or this other thing that continuously would help me feel a little bit better, but never better enough. And then I started doing things that actually were making me feel worse, things that I thought were healthy. And so it's really important. You can spend years going in cycles. And that was my journey. I spent years just trying, like, it's going to be this next supplement. It's going to be this next person that I see, this next test that I do that's going to magically tell me what's going on. And what I've learned from that is when you have a lot going on in your gut and you've got multiple food sensitivities, it's never just that one thing. It's this combination of things that we have to bring together and really support our body on so many different levels. And that is so powerful, not just for taking control of your food sensitivities, but really for elevating your health. Overall, it will get you to a place that, like you were saying, you never could really imagine when you're in that loop and living day to day with those symptoms. Most of us don't. We're like, we just want relief. But when you really support your body this way, you can get relief and you can heal and you can so much can shift and change. And it's really incredible to see.
And for me, I didn't want to just take a pill for the rest of my life. I wanted to figure out, okay, what can I do to heal this so I don't have to be on medicine for the rest of my life? So that was what really made me dive in and figure out what was going on. So, yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Just thought I would share that because I don't think I have. I don't really talk about that too much. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's super valuable for people to realize too, just kind of how common it is. Both of us have struggled with it, and there are a lot of people who struggle with food sensitivities and digestive issues that don't realize it. And, it can show up, like we said, in a lot of different ways. The symptoms are really broad and varied. So a lot of people don't realize how common it really can be. And that if you're struggling and having some of those symptoms, and a lot of us, I think, aren't even aware that we're having, it's like, oh, I've got constipation. Yeah, I only go to the bathroom every 3 days. And like somehow that's been normalized, that like that can just be where you're at. That's never normal, That's never normal to only use the bathroom at once every 3 days. It's not normal to have bloating or gas, pain, or do you want me to dive into some of the like symptoms since we're kind of that list already? So yeah, digestive issues for sure, bloating, gas, abdominal pain, any discomfort in the abdominal area, reflux. A lot of people struggle with reflux and heartburn. And even if it's not, where you actually feel it in your mouth, people get a lot of this kind of upper GI sort of symptoms, that burning through the chest area. It can go around to your back even. And sometimes the burning, sometimes it's a sharp, just really uncomfortable feeling. And then for other people, it's actually reflux. And there's people who vomit, get nauseous. And a lot of this can be caused by different foods. So those are kind of the digestive issues, but there's so much more. There's, people can struggle with aches and pains and discomfort in their joints and in their muscles from the foods that we're eating. We can have issues with brain fog, anxiety, depression, definitely irritability, impatience. Like if you're just feeling really impatient and irritable and you don't know why you feel like that so much of the time. It can cycle with your hormonal cycles as well and be worse, like it can definitely exacerbate PMS and certain symptoms and some of the hormonal symptoms that we experience as women with it if you're cycling. So it can exacerbate all of that because the hormones in the gut are super tied in. Something I hear a lot, and I know I really struggled with, is like low energy, fatigue, and sluggishness, and just feeling like you're kind of dragging yourself through your day. That's really common. Other things are like a racing heart or arrhythmias and things like that. Like some people will eat certain foods and then notice their heart really beating fast after, and that's a symptom as well. And I think a lot of these symptoms we don't attribute to gut health issues, digestive issues, or food sensitivities, but really what we put in our body. I mean, if you think about, that's your fuel, right? What we're eating, what we're consuming is our fuel. It's what keeps our bodies going. And if you put really, really crappy gas in your car, it's going to take its toll over time. If you put really crappy food in your body, it is going to take its toll over time, you know, and it doesn't even have to be crappy, because some of us can be reacting, I did, to really healthier foods. So, you know, thinking about it's just got to be the right fuel for you. So, let's see what else. Skin issues are huge. People who struggle with eczema. I have a client who's had eczema since she was 5. And this is the first time she can remember that it's like really cleared up, when she finally got a hold on these foods that were in her diet that she was not responding well to. And her eczema has been clear for several months now. And you know, that was something she'd struggled with her whole life. So skin issues, acne, rashes, itchy skin, candida symptoms, like if you've got yeast overgrowth, if you have chronic yeast infections, like all of those things can be related. Sinus issues, that can also be a fungal issue as well. Candida can kind of settle in our sinuses. So based on the foods we're eating, and I'm sure you could, that could be a whole nother webinar probably, or a whole nother talk, because when we're talking about sugars and high glycemic foods, that's what feeds so many of those bad microbes like candida. So another thing that I think people don't relate is unexplained weight gain or loss. So if you've got like rapid weight gain or loss, it can be or difficulty losing weight. I hear that a lot, or difficulty gaining weight. That can have to do with food sensitivities as well. And then just general kind of inflammation and retention, water retention. If you don't know kind of what it is, those mysterious symptoms are a lot of times related to your digestion and your gut health, and can be related to food sensitivities. So that's a pretty broad list. I think the only thing I haven't said are headaches, but I did mention aches and pains. Headaches are really common too.
Yeah.
So it's pretty broad, and there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm struggling with chronic migraines, and they can't figure it out for the life of them. They've done so many different things. Or insomnia can be related to the food you're eating, you know. So some of these things that really are debilitating and set people back for days, hours, weeks, you know, or some people, they just never really feel like themselves, can really have a big part to play in, or have a big connection to your digestive health. So hopefully that's helpful for people to understand like how broad it can be. Our gut health is foundational to our health. And so if your gut is not in good shape, so many other things can be out of whack.
Yeah. I love that you named all those, because it's so individual for people, you know, where it can show up as, you know, inflammation for one person, it may be headaches for another, or, you know, gut issues or whatever it is. You know, it's so individual. So
it's so true. And it's a puzzle to put it together for each person. You know, we all need kind of different things to address this, and we all react to different foods. And so, you know, there's not really like one protocol that's going to just work. And like I said, it's not just one magic pill. This isn't a quick fix. But it's very achievable and doable. It's kind of a simple plan. It's just, we really need to get in there and get to those underlying causes and figure out what it is for you, what's triggering you individually. And then from there, we can start to address the issues. If you don't know what it is, you can't really address it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to get to the root of the issue.
Every time.
How do we know if food sensitivities are causing our health issues? Like, how do we figure that out?
Yeah, you know, I think the first couple of things that come to mind are observing what you're eating. If you feel bad after you eat and you notice that that's consistently the case, it's very likely food sensitivities. If you have those more obvious digestive issues, like, you know, pain in the gut, reflux, those issues that you would automatically think like, okay, I'm having constipation, or it could be food, right? Because it's directly connected to the digestive the digestive system. So those are some ways, like if those are the things that are happening for you. If it's a little more mysterious, a lot of times what ends up happening is people go through a process of elimination with other things, and then they end up settling on food sensitivities. There are other ways to find out though. Like if you suspect a certain food and you take that out of your diet, you eliminate that food for a few weeks and then add it in, and you got to kind of go strict with it. You really have to take it out, and because our body produces antibodies and it recognizes that food as it comes in, you've got to give your body a little bit of time to clear. So it's not like if you're testing gluten, but I only had one piece of bread a day, or I only had like this little bit of gluten that was in this sauce, because every time you put it in your body is triggered by it. So especially with gluten, and then second to that would be dairy. If those are things that you suspect, eliminating it and kind of testing it. And for some people, they feel a lot better when they take it out. For other people, they feel way worse when they add it back in 3 weeks later. So it becomes the symptoms, your body becomes like a cleaner slate to be able to test it from. So that is kind of the surefire way to test it, is like you take these suspect foods and more common trigger foods, and you can eliminate them and check them. That is the gold standard for figuring out your food sensitivities and what they specifically are. There is food sensitivity testing. It depends where someone's at, whether I'll recommend that for them or not, because a lot of times what happens anyway, if they're working with me, we don't go to food sensitivity testing first, because if they get the test, we're going to take those results, use them as clues, and do the elimination anyway. So we're still going to go through that process, because things can be missed on a test. You can have different results from one test to the next. They can just be very inconclusive at times. Sometimes they can be inaccurate. It's really kind of a snapshot of where your body is at that point in time. And a lot of time it's the foods you're eating commonly. And so what this tells us is if you have done a test, a lot of people who come to me have already done a test, and they have a list of foods, anywhere from 20 to 96 different foods that they're sensitive to. And they come like super overwhelmed. And that's the other thing with testing. It can be really overwhelming. And, I said, what I say to them is, what this means to me is that you have underlying gut dysfunction. We don't need to look at every single one of these foods. Like, we'll keep them in mind. We'll use them as clues, and we'll draw conclusions, do some detective work and draw conclusions from these foods, because there's certain food categories that can build up and accumulate in our body. So we will use this information since you already have it, but, we need to get to that underlying cause, because otherwise we can just develop more and more food sensitivities, and it can kind of escalate from there. So let me come back to your question a little bit. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but with testing, I get that question a lot. What test should I do? And it really depends. Like, if someone is just feeling really drawn towards testing, then there are tests out there. There's at-home tests. There's tests you can do through your doctor. None of them are that gold standard. Like, none of them, sometimes people will suspect things and they'll get the test and it will confirm that. Sometimes people will do 2 tests and it will be the same. But there are so many other times that it's like, okay, I took the foods on my test out and I'm still having pain. What do I do now? And again, we go back to the drawing board, where it's like, okay, let's use the information and the foods you're sensitive to, and now let's dive deeper into what other foods could still be triggering you, or what foods are accumulating over time. So food sensitivity testing is really, and it's not the allergy testing, it's the food sensitivity testing. That can be, that I would steer someone towards if they were feeling drawn to that. But yeah, I think it's just really good to know that eliminating and challenging those foods is the way to go anyway. It's what you need to do afterwards regardless, but if you have no clue and that's what you're feeling drawn to, that is a way. And definitely, if you're trying to figure out, is this food sensitivities, and you get that test done, if it comes back with 20 foods or 30 foods or 10 foods, then you know you have food sensitivities and you can dive deeper from there. So it can be that confirmation, I guess, for some people and say, okay, this is a food sensitivity issue. But I have lots of clients also, they get that back and they're like, I wasn't allergic to anything, but I have all these issues. And they do have food sensitivities. The test just didn't show them. You know, they may have food intolerances where they're not breaking their food down properly. And so again, we go back to looking at the underlying causes. That's really the way to go. Otherwise, it's just that loop, you know? So those are a few ways to know. I think the best thing to do is kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself, do I have, like, am I sensitive to foods, and see what comes up. And I also think that just that process of observing or writing down what you're eating and your symptoms can really be helpful. And then you're like, okay, I had a stomach ache 3 days in a row after lunch. And then I feel unsettled after dinner, you know, like if it always feels correlated with times you've eaten, then that can be a way to know. But also people can have delayed symptoms that come on 4 hours later. And it's more like, you know, there's dysfunction in the small intestine where the food has moved through and there's issues further down the GI tract. So keep that in mind too, that it's not kind of ruling it out if you don't have that, but really observing and kind of starting to notice and increase your awareness is the best way. And then checking in and saying, hey, am I sensitive to these foods?
Yeah. Well, I think you answered my second question. What's the first step in figuring out if we have food sensitivities? So I think you answered that.
You look frozen, Jennifer. Are you there still?
You see me? Well, Leah can't hear me, but I'm gonna just let y'all know where you can find out more about Leah. She's Leah Vong, and she's a health coach, and she helps women find relief from food sensitivities. And her website is leahvong.com, and I'll put that in the comments when the video goes to replay. But it's leahvong.com. And her group, if you are interested in joining her Facebook group, it's Food Sensitivity Support for Women. And she's also on YouTube. You just look for Leah Vong, Leah, and then it's Vong, Leah Vong on YouTube. And she does lots of really interesting videos about food sensitivities and just how you can uncover that. And she gets, you know, really detailed there, and it's really interesting to learn from her. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, okay, good. Well,
sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No, it's fine. It's technology. It happens.
It does.
I was just letting them know where they can find you. I told them your website, your Facebook group, and then that you also have a YouTube channel that you do lots of great videos on. So I'll put that all in the comments when this video goes to the replay. I'll put that in the comments so they can click on those if they want to.
That sounds great.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're back.
Yeah, me too.
So my next question is, what is the best thing that we can do if we have known sensitivities? Like if we know that we're sensitive, like should we visit the doctor or take supplements or get support? What would you suggest would be the first thing, like the first step?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I wouldn't start with supplements until you get support, because here's a couple of things about supplements. And we've already talked a little bit about how we can kind of put Band-Aids on symptoms. Supplements can be super useful, but if you don't know what you're taking and you don't know, you don't know a lot about what's in it, the ingredients that are in it. I have spent so much money taking supplements that I was sensitive to. And
Mm.
with food sensitivities, it can be anything, right? It can be a supplement, anything you put in your mouth, anything you consume. For a lot of people, it can even be things we put on our skin because we absorb that right into our bloodstream, and your bloodstream can react. So, I have a client who coconut oil works for so many people as a natural like moisturizer. She was really reacting to coconut and didn't realize it. So she'd switched all of her beauty products to a really clean to really clean products, but a lot of them had coconut in it until she realized that she was doing things that were just causing that constant inflammation. So unless you really have been guided by someone to take certain things, there's also, like certain supplements that you shouldn't take if you have one gut issue, but if you have another one, it can be helpful, those kind of things. So there's a lot of products out there, and you really need to be knowing what you're taking and what you're putting in your body, because you can waste so much money, and you can actually be either not benefiting your body at all and just kind of wasting that money. They say having really expensive stool or really expensive urine, but not actually, doing anything for yourself. Or you can even be causing damage based on what you're taking, So for me, like I was taking certain things that I was spending really good quality. I always researched and thought I was taking a really good quality product. But if it's not the right product for you, there needs to be a purpose for every supplement that you're taking. And it
Mhm.
needs to make sense for you, and we need to test it and make sure that it's something that works for you. So I wouldn't start there until you've gotten support. That is the number one thing for interrupting this cycle, is working with someone who is experienced in this, working with someone who knows how to get to those underlying causes and kind of tease out the different pieces, and who knows how to support your body in this holistic way. So there's tons of different information in the gut health world. There's tons of practitioners out there. A lot of them are really great. And then, there's others who may not be the right fit for you. So finding support that is the right support for you is super, super important. Someone who can help you tease through it. I was such a DIYer, so I get that. And I think I needed to go through that process, but I really went in circles for years thinking like, okay, this next thing, this next thing, this next thing, and then I'm going to be better, and then I'm going to be better. I'm going to take out this food, then I'm going to be better. But I didn't understand the whole picture, that I wasn't able to really get to the underlying causes. And so, at one point in time, I went grain free, but then I was eating all kinds of nuts and things that were triggering my body. And I didn't really understand that why I was having more symptoms, but I was having more symptoms eating that way than I was eating, including grains in my diet, and not everybody does great with grains, but for me, I actually needed that, and I needed to not be eating those other really uh, hard to digest plant-based proteins. Like those were really difficult on my body, and they were triggering symptoms. So, finding support is the best thing you can do. Really starting to figure out what foods serve you well and what foods are triggering your symptoms is a great place to start. A lot of people take on an elimination challenge diet by themselves. And I know for me, I went through it probably 4 to 5 times before I really got to some of the foods that were doing it. So I hear people say, I've already done an elimination challenge diet. I've already done that, and it didn't work. I didn't really seem sensitive to anything. But the thing is, a lot of us never get to a baseline where we actually feel good. And then you have other foods or other things that are triggering your symptoms. And it's really hard to tease out what your response to a food is if you have other inflammation already happening in your body. So we really got to get you back to that baseline and then test from a clean slate.
Yeah. And then the other thing I always think of is, how much money are you spending on these supplements and these things, trying all these things? That's all going to add up. And if you just get the support and get to the root of the issue, I think you'll save a lot of money in the long run, and a lot of time, because you're not going to spend years, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. If you have the right person to help you with this, then, you won't waste all this money and time, trying to figure it out on your own. So, you know,
100%. It is so true. And I really did learn that lesson the hard way. But as soon as I got the right kind of support, not that I'd never reached out and I'd worked with different doctors, but none of them really understood this the way that I needed to understand it. And so unless they specialize in working with people with food sensitivities and they understand that what needs to happen is a custom plan for you, because I think that's the other thing that happens is a lot of practitioners have a protocol. And, tons of people go on the AIP diet, the autoimmune paleo diet, or they go on, different, like that, I'm going to take out grains, I'm going to go keto, I'm going to go paleo. And like those diets can be fantastic for some people, but for people with gut issues, you may not be tolerating some of the foods in it. So it's always about finding a custom plan and finding a practitioner who can help you come up with the right combination of things for your body, because otherwise you could be, again, taking supplements that are expensive. A lot of these supplement protocols are really spendy, and things that you maybe don't need, things that maybe don't work for your body. So it's really important to find someone who understands this and who can put those pieces together for you.
yeah, it's not one size fits
With
all.
you, I should say it's not. It's definitely not. And I should say with you, because so much of this is a partnership, and it's learning how to then tune into your body. So moving forward, you can listen and you can know what to do for your body. So that is what drew me to health coaching over any of the other. Not that, and some doctors can totally work with this. They really listen. I had a great naturopath who really listened. He did everything he could. But still we weren't getting to the root cause because he didn't understand it. So you need those pieces all to be there. And I think it is really important to find someone who is willing to be in a partnership and to help you learn to check in with your body, because you are the one that knows your body the best. Like no practitioner can tell you this is what you need when, it needs to feel right to you. It needs to, if you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right, that doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. So it's really important to, I just want to say that, since I said putting the puzzle pieces together for you, I want to say it really is with you. And you guys need to find someone that you can go through that process with. And so much can happen when you have the knowledge and the resources and the support and the guidance, but then you're able to learn to kind of start checking in and figuring out and doing some of the footwork at home as well, doing some of the tracking and noticing and observing and increasing your awareness about what you need. That's kind of where the magic is. So
Yeah. And like for my audience, I focus on sugar addiction and blood sugar balance and all that. So how does like food sensitivities play into like when you consume a lot of sugar or carbs, or how does that play into your hormones and everything? Like, I know it can cause a hormonal imbalance, and then that can cause other issues. And can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So sugar, especially refined sugars and corn syrups and things like that, are highly inflammatory in the body. And I believe that no matter who we are, some people are going to be able to process it better. And if their gut's in a healthier place, their body's in a healthier place, they may not notice symptoms, but it's still something our body has to deal with. It's not an easy thing for our bodies to process. So some people are really directly sensitive to sugar, where when they eat it, they will notice some of these bigger reactions. Other people, it's just kind of creating that constant inflammation. But when we tie it into the hormone piece, then, and you can maybe chime in on this a little bit more too, but with the insulin spikes and blood sugar crashes and things like that, and how that ties in with our other hormones, it can really set off a cascade of hormonal imbalance in the body. And so just to say, again, the gut is so foundational. Our gut produces and regulates a lot of our hormones, and our hormones the gut and the hormonal system rely on each other to do the jobs that they need to do. So, if we're not clearing estrogen out of our system because we're not properly eliminating or clearing toxins through our liver processes a lot of estrogen. So if your liver's backed up and those detox pathways are backed up, we can really get a buildup of estrogen. You can become estrogen dominant, and then it can really throw off the other hormone systems. So, we're talking about insulin and glucagon and the ones that regulate blood sugar. But then, think about if you have a blood sugar crash, your stress level goes up, for those of you who struggle with low blood sugar. So then that affects your stress hormones. And, if we're in that constant cascade of kind of going up and down and having those crashes and spikes, instead of having a more balanced blood sugar, it can really impact your stress, your anxiety, your nervous system being in a heightened state. There's so many things. And then when that ties in with the reproductive organs or the thyroid is hugely problematic for a lot of people. And, there's direct links with food sensitivities and the thyroid. And so, just to say, when one of those hormones becomes imbalanced, it can throw off the whole hormonal cascade, or, the different hormonal connections as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you
also, like, I was going to say, like, if you have constant high insulin, then, that's going to cause you to, have more testosterone in your system. And that can cause hormonal issues like acne and like facial hair and things like that. And so, it's important to kind of keep your insulin level, just so you won't have too much testosterone and get these other issues, these other hormonal issues. So, yeah.
It's such a
That's
good
what I
point.
thought of.
And again, I think, absolutely. And I think, again, it comes back to this idea of that we need to support our bodies holistically. So I know a lot of the people that show up and are ready to seek the help of a health coach, maybe they've got a few food sensitivities that just won't go away. But for other people, it's like their hormones are off. They're not sleeping well. Which can also tie in with hormones. Insomnia can be related to our menstrual cycle. It can be related to so many different things, but hormones can certainly impact it. But like, they're not sleeping well, their hormones are off, they've got gut issues, maybe they've got joint aches and pains, and they show up feeling like, oh, I'm just so done. And they feel, they'll say, like, I feel like a mess. And I remember being in that place. And I think the important thing to know is that so many of these things are connected, and we can get ourselves into that mess, quote unquote, pretty, like, over time that happens. And then all of a sudden our bodies are done and all these symptoms start popping up. They just can't handle anymore. But also, when we support our bodies holistically, the healing that can happen in a short amount of time is incredible. And it does take time for the gut to heal, but to get to a place where you're really feeling relief and not feeling like a mess, not feeling like you're broken, I think it's really important for people to hear that too, that, like, although it's all these seemingly separate things, so often it's connected, and that holistic support can get you out of that in a much shorter time than you would imagine.
Yeah.
If you're doing the right things, right? If you're getting to that.
Really start feeling relief, like, soon, within weeks, really.
Yes.
Even like for me, I work with people with blood sugar and stuff. When we get your blood sugar down, you can start feeling better in a few days, and it takes time, but you can definitely start to feel better in a few days, a week. if you just start doing the things that you need to do to get your insulin down and your blood sugar down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Hope.
do what?
Hopefully that brings some hope for people, it's
Yeah, yeah, it's
going on for
definitely,
years, but to get out of
yeah,
it is,
definitely.
yeah, feasible, and it doesn't have to take forever. So,
So, Leah, do you have like some final tips you can give us? Like a few tips that we can do on our own or that where we can start,
yeah, for sure. I'd be happy to do that. I think that I want to kind of point out the areas that really need to be looked at for this type of holistic support. We've already talked a little bit about figuring out what serves you well and what doesn't. And although that sounds simple, it can be a little bit of a process. But it can also be simple depending on what's going on for you. So, really looking into the foods that are serving you well and the foods that are causing your problems. Like, that's the place that I usually start with people, because when we can figure that out, the brain fog starts to lift, you feel a little bit better, our mood perks up. We didn't really dive in too much to like stress and anxiety and depression, but like, when your foods can really, what you're eating can really increase. If you have a lot of things you're eating that you're sensitive to, or even a few things you're eating often, you can have that constant trigger increasing anxiety or causing depression. Like, our serotonin is also produced in our gut. So, when we can get those foods figured out, so often our mood's better and we just have so much more clarity. And then we have the tools we need to kind of move into the next step or the next layer of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I think it's super beneficial to start looking at your stress and get really real with yourself about how stress is showing up in your life. This may be sitting down and journaling and saying, okay, this is what I'm dealing with, or writing it out, or, even just kind of brainstorming it. But I think so many of us think that we're not under stress. And, I hear that a lot in my consults. People are like, yeah, stress isn't, I also hear the other, like, I'm super stressed and I don't know what to do. But a lot of people, people definitely will say, yeah, I don't think stress is a really big thing with me. And when we start working together, we dive into it and it's like, oh, okay, stress is really showing up. And I think these days, like, if we are not taking active steps to really minimize our stress and to manage the unavoidable stressors, then stress is taking its toll on all of us. Like, the world we live in is busy, it's hectic. And so I think it has more to do with that level of awareness around what stress is doing for us. And sometimes our stress can be out of proportion. Like, maybe your life doesn't feel like it's really stressful, but and that's how it was for me. I think my anxiety always felt out of proportion. Like, I have all this anxiety, but my life is like, didn't feel like I was in a place where like there was something big that should have been triggering that. So I think getting really real about how stress is showing up for you in your life, if you stay in that heightened state more often, or if you're really able to come down into a state of rest and digest, which is necessary to digest our food. So really looking at that piece and starting to figure out and putting the puzzle pieces together for that. And then, from there, also like going into looking at limiting beliefs. We all have things that kind of keep us stuck from healing, especially, those that we're talking, the people who are here today, and the people that you and I work with who have chronic health things going on. We have things that are keeping us stuck, whether it's thoughts or patterns or beliefs. And so looking at that piece too, because those can really hold us in that cycle, and bringing some awareness to those so that you can kind of work through and process some of them and have some tools to process that is really valuable. And then another area that is very beneficial to dive into is around environmental toxins. So I know this kind of sounds like a lot, but these things, this is again why working with someone who can kind of walk you through this process is really helpful. But the toxins in our environment are another big stressor on the gut. And so all of the things I've listed are. You could be eating really well and you figure out the foods that are serving you well, but if you have tons of pesticides and chemicals around your house, or the indoor air quality is terrible, or you're not drinking filtered water, like we are bringing so many things into our body. Like if you live in the city and there's probably heavy metals, there's probably prescription medications, there's probably VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, coming in just through the water you drink. So if that's what we're using to heal and boost our body, we think we're doing something so good for it, and water is amazing, but we need to be drinking clean water. So just kind of being able to identify some of those things and see how they show up for you. Because the biggest thing that you can do is, and I guess this is the more practical step, is anything you can do to start to decrease stress on your gut. Whether it's through food, whether it's through those environmental toxins, through stress, and then you come at it from all those angles. And like I said, that's where the magic happens. That's when you start really feeling better. And so getting support and having someone help walk you through that and help figure out the pieces for you that you need to address. Because here's the other thing, what I just said were a lot of different areas. And if you're trying to do it on your own, you may need to try to do every single thing, right? But if you can work with someone and figure out what pieces you really need to address and have them help you analyze and do the exploration around your food, and have them help you with your stress and figuring out what works for you, and help point out what's maybe keeping you stuck, because it's all of us. We all have those things keeping us stuck. And look at the toxins, then you don't have to do every single thing. Like every single thing isn't going to be right for every single person. So it's really pulling together again those pieces for yourself. But one more thing I want to say is, just in the meantime, just starting to observe, I think, is one of the best places to start. Starting to notice how you feel after you eat, noticing if there's certain foods that you feel like, because you need to kind of come up with that list of suspect foods. And then, you can dive into also looking at the common trigger foods and things like that and start from there. But yeah, so valuable to just start to decrease that stress on your gut and give your body a little bit of a break. Your body is trying to come back to homeostasis. It wants to come back to a healthy balance, and our bodies work so hard all the time to do that, but you have to give it the chance to do that by removing these things and actively, working on these little shifts that can support your gut and really your body in that way, so that it can do what it needs to.
Yeah, I love those tips. Those are so simple, like keep a food journal and start noticing when you're having symptoms, noticing what foods are causing that. And like the water filter, that is such a simple thing that you can do to reduce your toxins and things, and environmental toxins, like your cleaning products, and like your lotions and your soaps and all these things, even like candles,
Yes.
Can release toxins into the air, and those room sprays, there's so much we're taking, we're taking in that we don't realize. And, it just really can do a number on your system and on your hormones and everything. So,
Yeah.
we just, we have to do the best we can, I guess, to really eliminate those. But it is good when we have that support. It's especially if you're having these major symptoms. The support is life-changing. So.
It really is. It really is. It's so much, I think, like, as you're kind of listing out some of these environmental toxins and air fresheners and things like that, I think people don't even know what to, and just because we're not taught. I didn't know either until somebody had to teach me what to look for, so learning how to read labels and learning to kind of notice what's there. Like I have people who will say, yeah, I've already done the environmental toxin stuff, and they have, they've maybe switched out their soaps and their laundry detergent and things like that. But then it's looking at like, okay, what about your cookware? What about, so it's just going through and identifying, and then you can address the things that actually need it, and not just kind of do this overall like clean sweep, like I have to change everything in my house, like that's not always what needs to happen. But someone who specializes and is really familiar in this area can kind of tell you, like we can tell you, like let's look at these things because these are the most toxic things. You're using them all the time. Let's switch those and let's come up with a plan. It doesn't all have to happen at once.
Mm-hmm.
Make these transitions and these shifts over time. So I think so often people, we just don't even realize like what's happening in the world today when it comes to things like toxins and stress. And, we've all been kind of swept along with time. And then here we are, but things have shifted dramatically from my grandmother's time.
Yeah.
You're like, food was just organic. It was not,
Yep.
it wasn't like you get conventional or you get organic. Like back when pesticides were not what was happening, back when people were growing more of their own food and making more of their own products. And so there's been these huge changes, and we have to evolve with those changes. And our guts are not ready. Like our digestive system is not ready for all of that. It's not built to take in that level of chemicals. And so I think a lot of people acknowledge that there's so much more of these kind of things happening, more cancer, more chronic health issues, more gut issues, more issues with diabetes. And it's like, I think a lot of us haven't really looked at like why that's happening. And I think it's because we've just been swept along with the times, but all these things have changed. And so we have to adapt to that. And part of adapting to that is having the awareness to identify what it is, and then be able to work with it, and make those changes and support our bodies, and then bring in supplements where it's helpful, because most of us are not getting all our nutrients, but bringing in supplements that work for you, supplements that are going to support you, and not just be a waste, be expensive urine.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. Like with the, multivitamins and things, like your body is not getting, if it says it's 100% of a vitamin, it's not, you're not getting that. You're peeing most of that out. So, with the vitamins. And so, like you said before, you just have expensive urine. And
True.
so you really have to look at that and, be selective with what you're taking and why and all that.
Know what form's the best, what's the most absorbable, really spending a little bit more to go with companies that are making a good quality product versus just wasting your money on something that isn't doing anything for you. I think there's no taking something that you're not absorbing. You have to be able to break it down and absorb it. So
Right. And then also, like, if you have, like gut issues and things like that, you may not always absorb all those vitamins and nutrients that you need until you start healing that. And then, once your gut is healed, once your body's healed, then you can start absorbing your vitamins better.
That's a good point. That is such a good point. So sometimes it's these layers that we have to work through. Not everybody's ready for probiotics in the beginning, but that doesn't mean probiotics can't be super beneficial, So it's like, again, working with someone to know when the right time to bring those things in. Not everybody tolerates bone broth, as we think like it's kind of such a trendy thing right now, and bone broth can be fantastic for a lot of people. But if it's not working for you, we need to figure out something that, figure out what needs to come before that, what needs to help us get to that point. And it may not ever be the right thing for you, but it could be. We just, maybe you need to do some kind of preliminary work to get there. So
yeah. Well, Leah, this has been super interesting. I think I could talk to you forever.
I know. I just looked up. I realized we've been on here for an hour.
Yeah. But I just love talking to you about this because, there's still things I need to learn. And I love watching your YouTube videos and diving into that
Good.
more and everything. So,
Good. I'm glad
but
it's helpful.
yeah. So, do you want to say any last words or any last
Um,
thoughts or
I mean, I
anything?
think I've already said it, but I think the important thing is to just know that there are answers out there. Don't give up hope. You don't have to be stuck with whatever, you know, if it's a diagnosis or, someone saying you're fine, your blood work's fine, you look fine, we don't see anything. And that happens so often, colonoscopies, endoscopies, like having the system checked out and still people saying, there's nothing wrong with you, So people just think that when we're told that from a doctor or from someone, I think, a lot of times we're like, okay, this is just what I have to live with. I have to live with this forever. And I just want to really emphasize that that is not true. I really don't believe that. I've seen evidence like over and over and over again that people can get past this and that you can find foods that work for you. A lot of people are even able to add foods that they were once sensitive to back in once they've done some healing. So it doesn't mean also like having a super restricted diet, but it comes down to what's worth it to you. Is it worth it to stay off of this food for a while and while you can heal, or off of these foods and eat in a way that nourishes your body, um, while you go through that healing, so that you can have so much more freedom and feel so much better and really get back to your life after. It is the journey is super worth it. So I just want to emphasize that where you are does not have to be where you stay. And there's so many tools and things like that. And, feel free to reach out to me or to Jennifer. And we both do free consultations. We do like a free coaching session where we can kind of talk through and help you come up with a plan. So reach out for that and take advantage of it. Even if you aren't sure if you're ready to move forward, it can be so insightful. And yeah, I just want to bring that hope that like there are definitely things you can do. And even if you've been floundering for a long time and you've tried a lot of different things, there are still things that we can do to get you out of the weeds and out of that cycle. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Leah. And I'm going to leave your information again in the comments. So if anybody is interested in booking a call with you or just learning more about you, I'll leave your information down there.
that sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I love tying it in with the hormonal and blood sugar and sugar piece too, because it's so tied in. So I feel like it flows really well together, and I appreciate your perspective on this.
Yeah,
So thanks for
yeah.
having me today.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. And I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.